You're watching TVC, and this is where we bring you Two Sides with Riyah, where we speak about all the issues that should make it to the news. Today, we'll be talking about something very, very pertinent. Now, back in 2014, the world stood still as over 270 schoolgirls were abducted from Chibok in Borno State by Boko Haram, a tragedy that sparked the global Bring Back Our Girls movement and placed Nigeria's security crisis firmly on the international stage. More than a decade later, the conversation has evolved, but the pain, the questions, and the search for answers remain. Today, we'll be speaking to award-winning journalist and media entrepreneur, Steph Busari, who played a major role in bringing this particular issue to the global stage. She joins me to shed more light on the future of what happened to some of those girls. Award-winning journalist Steph Busari joins me. It's a pleasure to have you, and well done on what you're doing with SBB Media. Fantastic job, I must say. But you know, I'm just going to go straight into the conversation. When we talk about the Chibok girls, you played a very pivotal role. I mean, you were the one that had the video of the proof of life, which went viral, which was a very, very, symbolic video at that point. I want you to break it down for me from that video, just getting the proof of life before we even speak about how far these girls have gone.
Yeah, so well, thank you for having me. It's a topic that has come to define my career in some ways. I've covered this story for 12 years. The kidnapping marked 12 years in April this year. And so I was living in London when it happened in 2014, and I came to Nigeria with a CNN team to cover the story. And it was just unbelievable because at that time, school kidnappings were not common. And it was just a global shock. And you remember everyone holding up the placards, Michelle Obama, Malala, world leaders, bring back our girls. And it was really the first time that African girls, the world had advocated in any meaningful way for African girls. So it really touched me. I grew up in Lagos, I'm born in Lagos, and I went to boarding school here before I left for the UK. So it touched me on so many levels, professionally, personally, and I think that's what really kind of led me to really kind of dedicating my career to reporting this. And so the proof of life, I was able to obtain that 2 years after the kidnapping in 2016. By this time, we're journalists, the news cycle moves on very quickly. And by this time, the world had moved on, and Bring Back Our Girls was just a memory, a footnote in history. But I refused to let it be that way because there were still 219 girls missing. Yeah. So in the days after the kidnapping, some of the girls jumped out of the truck. I'm not sure many people know that, but 57 girls escaped by jumping out of moving trucks, going into some piece of forest. So you can imagine how terrified those girls were. But 219 girls still remain missing with no word, no trace of where they were or who they were with. And, that video I got because I stayed on the case. And as journalism kind of practitioners, and what I tell my mentees, when the world moves on from a story, that's exactly the time to stay on it. It's the time to keep making calls. It's the time to just get updates where you can, because you never know, you'll land on a scoop. Yeah. And that's precisely what happened.
And that was a very defining moment for you and your career. But when we talk about the whole Chibok issue, that was the first time we saw something like that happen. Lots of parents were thrown into anguish, just asking, where are these girls? At some point, we were getting so many reports that there was even Stockholm syndrome, because these girls, they didn't even want to come back because they had stayed so long with their abductors that they felt like that was life for them. We heard that some of these girls got pregnant, and the conversation still goes on and on about it. Yeah. But we're looking at, there's a future, with these girls. And that's the most beautiful thing. We speak about the trauma that they went through.
Yeah, I mean, Riyah, it cannot be overemphasized, the way that this tragedy, and it is a tragedy, it's a tragedy on many levels. A tragedy for the nation, it's a tragedy for the girls, for their families. So their future was stolen or attempted to be stolen. And, when that video came out in 2016, it just reignited the global interest in the story. Everybody wanted to cover it. Oh, these famous Chibok girls that we've forgotten about, they're still alive. You know, we went to the parents, we verified the video, and then because of that video, conversations with Boko Haram were started.
Yeah.
So
that video was a defining moment for the conversations.
It was absolutely a defining moment because the government was spurred into action once again. Yeah. And this time there was a change of administration. It was now the Buhari administration. Yeah. And so it was like, we have to do something to bring these girls home. So the video was published in April 2016, and by October 2016, 21 girls were freed. Yeah. And then the following year, another, I think, 100 or so were freed. Yeah. But the tragedy is that we still have around 80 or more girls still missing.
Yeah, still missing.
Some of them have absorbed, like you say, Stockholm Syndrome. They've absorbed that lifestyle. You know, don't forget, these were secondary school girls when they were kidnapped. So they just know that way of life 10 years after. So they are, some of them in that situation, some of them may be dead. Yeah. We have to...
Yeah, the bitter truth, actually.
That is the bitter truth. Some of them may have passed, may have been killed in airstrikes or killed even by Boko Haram themselves. Yeah. And some of them, like you say, came back with children.
Exactly.
Because they were forced to marry their abductors. And, you know, what some of them told me when they came back was that Boko Haram split them into camps.
Wow.
If you wanted to get married, if you agreed to get married to these Boko Haram fighters, then you would have slightly better living conditions. And then the ones that didn't get married would become your house girl. So can you imagine that dynamic? Yeah. Schoolgirls, all the same, from the same school. Now some of them are the madame, and because the ones that chose to stay single, they didn't have any status, so they now became house girls, serving these women, cooking and cleaning for them.
But Stephanie, I'm going to go a little bit government with this. Let's talk about the federal government for a minute. Do you think that, you know, they were not fair, you know, to these girls, or they didn't put in a lot of, what word do I use? A lot of urgency in just making sure that these girls return home, knowing that these are girls that will be put in a very, very precarious situation?
So it's
we said the government failed them.
Well, it's an interesting question, because in the early days of the kidnapping in 2014, when we were talking to families, they told us. So you have to imagine, you know, the logistics of carrying 276 girls. It's not on a Okada.
Yeah, of course not.
It's not in a car. They were in lorries. Yeah. Huge lorries. There was like 3 or 4 lorries carrying each girl. And, you know, the Sambisa forest is vast. Yeah. It's huge. And so the parents were telling us that they saw these trucks carrying their daughters going into the Sambisa forest.
So what did the federal government do at that time?
Well, so clearly nothing was done, because these trucks were were snaking their way into this forest over days. They did not just vanish into the forest. Yeah. If any intervention could have happened, maybe it was that time. Yeah. I don't want to speak for them, but the parents were telling us that there were too many delays and there were no attempts. Yeah. They didn't see any soldiers. They didn't see anybody. They tried to run after these trucks with machetes.
That's the parents.
The parents. And imagine these terrorists have AK-47.
Where do you start from?
You cannot run after someone with a gun, even though every part of you is desperate to go and chase them and get your daughter back. So did the government fail them? I don't know. That's a question for Nigerians to answer. But the parents certainly felt that if these girls, one of them did tell me that if they were daughters of the elite, if they were daughters of important people, they would have been rescued immediately. That is the parents' feeling.
How the parents feel.
Yeah.
And you know, another thing that still bothers me is, you know, let's throw it back to 2014. We're in 2026 now,
Yeah.
Stephanie, and we still see abductions from schools.
Yeah.
You know, we'll talk about Oyo recently. Let's put Oyo on the forefront. You know, we just had, you know, students being taken away from school. It's from schools. It now seems like schools are soft targets, you know, for these terrorists.
Yeah.
What is the case? Why is it so? And what is the government really doing? Because at some point we had a belief that 2014 will be the last. What we experienced, you know, with the placard, everybody saying bring back our girls, it went international. I mean, the whole world was talking about bring back our girls.
Yeah.
What things did we put in place to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Why are schools soft targets?
So it's multiple reasons. So first of all, after the Chibok kidnapping, there was a Safe Schools initiative that was created, but I don't think that initiative is there any longer.
Yeah.
This was a global initiative that was put in place. I think Gordon Brown, former UK Prime Minister, led that. But anyway, that was in 2014. Fast forward now, that is no longer in place. And you know, at the time I was at CNN, I covered no less than 10 school kidnappings.
In different northern parts
in different parts of the north. So it became commonplace. The first one after Chibok was Dapchi in Yobe State. That was 4 years later in 2018.
Yeah.
We drove to Dapchi. We covered that story, and you know, those girls were released fairly quickly, maybe after a month. But you will remember Riyah Sharibu?
Yeah,
Riyah
exactly.
Sharibu was one of those ones kidnapped in Dapchi.
Yeah.
Still, she was not freed.
Yeah.
With the others because we're told that she refused to convert to Islam.
Yeah.
So, you know, for some reason, she was not allowed to join her family. And I've lost track of that case. I don't even know where Riyah Sharibu is today. That was 2018. Then there was a bit of a silence, but then you started having, you had Zamfara, you had Kebbi, you had Niger, you had so many. And after Chibok, it became open season on schools because they could see that if you attack a group of children, there's outcry, there's emotions running high. Everybody puts the government under pressure. Parents are outside the school wailing. The international media, national media are there asking questions. So the government is really like caught in a rock, between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
They have to pay a ransom, and they pay ransom. They deny that they pay ransom, but they do. And so it becomes a soft target because you know that we just have to storm that school, and these schools have very little security.
And that's where we'll go on when we come back from this break, when we talk about security in schools. But just when we come back as well, we'll also be speaking about life after, you know, the Chibok kidnapping. Some of these girls have gone further to do amazing in life, and that's a reality check for us. Don't go anywhere. It's Two Sides with Riyah Abdul. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. You're still watching Two Sides. Great conversation I've been having with award-winning journalist Steph Busari on this Chibok issue. You know, it's an issue that will never be forgotten. I mean, even for some of the parents, this is something that will torment them for the rest of their lives. Let's not even talk about the girls that will live with the trauma. But before we even move to the exciting part where we have some girls that have graduated, super excited and are doing really well with their life, I want to talk about security in schools. Because I feel like oftentimes it's something that we say, but we do not really put measures into it. You made a very, very important statement where we say that, you know, when the students are kidnapped, it's very easy because you want to pay ransom. Because in your mind, you know, we do not want these kids to die. So what are we putting in place? Are we getting to a place where we say we will not pay ransom again?
So what has happened is that we've now created a criminal enterprise, which is very lucrative.
Yeah.
So when Boko Haram kidnapped the Chibok girls, and also in Dapchi, it was an ideology. They don't want Western education.
Yeah.
That's part of their fight. And certainly they do not want girls to be educated.
Yeah.
It's very clear. But then you're seeing this new wave of kidnappings, typically in the northwest. So Yobe and Borno in the northeast, largely Boko Haram fueled. But what you're seeing is banditry, really, for want of a better word, in the northwest. It's criminals who are copying the Boko Haram model, but they're not fighting for any ideology. They're just saying, we want to make money, a lot of it, and very quickly, let's go and attack a school. Yeah. So we've just allowed a very lucrative kind of enterprise
and how do we plan on stopping that? How are we able to put a stop to this? Now, for me, that's my worry. Question. Because we don't want to wake up one morning and hear more children have gone. That's what we see
we just
happening.
Did.
Exactly.
We just woke up yesterday or 2 days ago, and in Oyo State, more children have been kidnapped. And what I find quite disturbing is how detached Nigerians are from this issue.
Yeah.
Many people believe that it's a northern problem, that it's happening over there. But that's like sitting in a house, a big house that is on fire, and saying, oh, it's only in that part of the house. Fire spreads.
Yeah, sure.
As long as you're in that house, that fire is coming towards you. And that's what we're seeing now. We've seen a wave of insecurity in Kwara. Yeah. We've seen schools, the first school abduction in the Southwest. Yeah. So that, for me, is a very, very worrying trend that we must address quickly. You know, it's happened so many times in the North, Northeast, Northwest, that we've become desensitized to it. But we must do something. We cannot allow criminal gangs to overrun our schools. School is a sanctuary. School is a safe place where you send your children to be educated. And that's a social contract. If it's broken, then where do we go from there? I don't know what the security answers are. You know,
we've been having conversations about state policing. You know, the president had made a lot of bold statements. At some point, we're talking about forest guards, but we also know that some of these rural areas as well, the security there is actually not tight. You know, according to Governor Sheyi Makinde, he made a statement that some of the people that were arrested, you know, they were local indigents, and they were the ones giving, you know, telling the people what to do and where to go. Then we speak about intelligence. How well are we using intelligence to fight things like this?
So, you know, it's funny because in the years after the Boko Haram, the Chibok kidnapping, I always wondered, and then you saw them on TV and they were wearing this Islamic, the hijab, and you know, they were covered up. And you look at the logistics, 220 girls or 19 girls, it's not easy. It takes a whole army. You need a seamstress, you need cooks, you need, who are the people in the villages who are supporting this? We have to ask ourselves.
That's a very important question if you ask me.
We have to ask ourselves. There are people in our rural towns and even the cities who are supporting criminal enterprise for one reason or another. And they are complicit. They are making it easy for these terrorists to carry out very, very, you know, terrible acts. And some people have also talked about members of the security forces being complicit.
Exactly.
So until we start to ask ourselves those tough questions about who is really involved here.
And also, when we get to also name and shame, when we actually find out the people that are involved. But Stephanie, we're wrapping up in a bit, but I want to talk about your encounter with these girls, because you met some of these girls one-on-one, something that a whole lot of people, you know, hadn't. It's just them say, but you were able to talk to them. How do these girls feel? What were some of the things that they told you that made you realize that, oh, these girls really went through a whole lot?
I mean, we've only just scratched the surface of what they went through. You know, so when it was 10 years anniversary, I was still at CNN. We traveled to Chibok. We also went to Yola, the American University of Nigeria, where many of them are studying. So what the American University did in partnership with the federal government is they created a foundation kind of level of studies for them, because many of them didn't have WAEC and all of those things, you know, so they had to start from the bottom, and then if they passed that foundation level, they would go into the degree program. So, but some of these girls are too traumatized to even study. They've come back with children. They've been ostracized by their communities for coming back with a Boko Haram baby.
Yeah, true.
You know, One of them had her leg amputated in the Sambisa forest.
What?
Yes. There was a bomb, an airstrike bomb that blew off her leg. And she now wears prosthetic limbs. And she was devastated, like, who's going to marry me with my, you know, it's like tragedy on so many levels. Like, and they're not the only ones. The Chibok girls are not the only ones, you know. So, like, just speaking to them and just seeing the level of trauma that they're dealing with, it's painful, but I resolved, you know. I now run my own company, and I've resolved that I need to be a presence in their life. And I was very honored to be invited back to American University to be the commencement speaker.
Exactly, and for me, I want us to get into this. It's a very good news for me. Like, it takes away a lot of pain on my shoulder just knowing that some of these girls from Chibok have gone ahead to graduate and, you know, just do very well with their life. And most of them, like you said, are doing communications. They will come back. They'll be fantastic journalists. They'll you know, share their story and also impact Nigeria positively. But how was this feeling like for you? Just seeing these girls that have been through this kind of hardship still standing tall. It shows us how resilient women can be. Oh,
absolutely. And, you know, it's a real triumph over tragedy. So after the commencement, we went to celebrate with them and their families. And, you know, I was speaking to them and they told me, Boko Haram has not won. I have won. Exactly. And when I hear words like that, you just, it's such a powerful story of, it's not even resilience anymore. It's just this amazing kind of strength that you can't even describe. Like, one of them said she nearly gave up, but she said, no, you're not going to steal my education. You're not going to steal my life.
Exactly.
Because education gives you opportunities. So, you know, that was really great to see, you know, just how they were so determined to overcome trauma.
So how many of them did we have them graduating?
So
about
12 of them.
About 12 of
12
them.
of them graduated.
Yeah.
One of them had twins a few days before the graduation.
My God.
So they are picking up the pieces of their lives. True. Some of them don't want to be associated with Chibok anymore, which is
understandable.
Which is very understandable. Yeah. Some of them want to speak out and say, this is my story. It doesn't define me, but I want you to hear it.
And it's just beautiful to see that, you know, against all odds, that they were able to, you know, stand strong. Stephanie, I must say, this is a fantastic, you know, initiative from you. This is a beautiful thing that you were just there, because you have followed the story thick and thin, you know, to where it is now. And I'm sure that on that day, there will have been so many emotions from you, you know, just seeing these girls being able to graduate. Those are some of the pictures you're looking at. These girls just holding their graduation, you know, paper with the heart and everything. It's such an emotional moment for us. Now we say, for the remaining girls, what are we doing? What are we putting in place to make sure that these girls come back?
Well, I mean, you know, it's a real mystery. Where are they? Who are they with? Are they still alive? And, you know, you have to ask so many tough questions. Yeah. And Boko Haram is morphing and evolving into different factions, and, you know, who even still has them? Yeah. Are they even still identifiable as the Chibok girls? Are they just settled into life as they've known it for 12 years, right? You know, after a while, you just accept that this is my life now. You know, so there's a lot of questions, but the ones that are back, and also beyond the Chibok girls, so many abducted women and children and men. One thing we don't talk about is that a lot of the men who fight for Boko Haram are also abducted and forced to fight for Boko Haram. So it's just entire villages who are raided, people carted off and made to kind of kill and do things against their will. So
Stephanie, life after CNN, now we're seeing you with SBB Media, that is doing extremely well. I mean, that's the reason why we're here, to have this kind of conversation. But for you, you know, how many more lives do you plan on impacting? It seems like it's no stopping for you.
Well, yeah, you know, leaving a major corporation like CNN and setting up a company is not easy, but it's been wonderful. You know, I now run global storytelling company that helps people, governments, institutions, corporations to tell their story, to put their story on a global stage.
Yeah.
Because I believe that our stories in Africa deserve to be told widely and to be heard widely. So that's really what I'm dedicating my career to right now. And people like the Chibok girls, from the Chibok girls to state governors and to countries, all of our stories must be shaped, crafted and told on global platforms.
All I'll say is well done. We wish you the very best. We'll definitely be following up with you on this particular Chibok story and every great endeavor that you do. Well done on this story.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, our conversation today on Two Sides. The big question still remains, where are the remaining girls? We'll definitely follow through with the story. Thank you so much for watching Two Sides with Riyah. Till next time, you have a nice day.